Hi everyone, in this lecture I'll be teaching you how to calculate mean, median and mode. Yes, the basics of statistics, okay? So let's start with what is mean. Mean is the average. Mean is equal to average, okay? So if you have a data set where the numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, okay? So you have to calculate the mean of this data. For that, you'll have to take the sum of all the observations. Observations are nothing but the data points in your data. So we have 5 observations here and the sum will be 10 plus 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 2, which is 30. Okay. And the number of observations are 5. So we'll divide the sum of observations by the number of observations, which will be 6. So 6 is the mean of this data set, or the average of this data set. Now let's move on to median. The median is nothing but the middle value, or the value that is in the exact center of your data set. Now we have two situations here. One is when the number of observations are odd, and one is when the number of observations are even. Now what I mean by this is, let's take an example. We have a data set with numbers like 5, 8, 2, 10 and 12. Now to calculate our median, the first and the foremost thing that we do is to arrange our data set in an ascending order, which will be 2, 5, 8, 10 and 12. Okay. Now to calculate our median, we'll take the number of observations. Like we have 5 data points or observations in this data set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we'll take 5. And obviously, because 5 is an odd number, we will add 1 to it. So it will be 5 plus 1 divided by 2, because we'll take the average. So this gives us 2. 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Now 3 is not our median, it indicates the position of our median, which is 8. We have 8 in the third position. So the median of this data set is 8. Now let's see what we have to do when we have even number of observations. So let's say we have a data set with numbers like 8, 5, 2, 10, 15, 12. So obviously the first step is arranging this data set in an ascending order, which gives us 2, 5, 8, 10, 12 and 15. Now because we have even number of observations, we'll not add 1 to the number of observations. We'll just go directly with the number of observations and divide it by 2, which gives us 3 again. Now if you look at the data set closely, we have 8 in the third position, just like the previous situation, but look at the difference. We have two numbers after 8, we have two numbers before 8 in the odd number of observations. Okay, so that indicates that 8 is the exact center or the middle value of the data set. But here, if you look at the even number of observations, you can see that we have two data points before 8 and 3 data points after 8. This indicates that 8 is not the middle value of this data set. In this situation, we will take the next number that we have after 8, which is 10. Okay, always the next number, not the previous number, always the next number. We'll take the next number, which is 10. We'll add 8 and 10 and then divide it by 2. We'll take the average of both the numbers, which gives us 9, and that becomes our median value. I hope that's clear. Now you might have a doubt that why did we add 1 when we had number of observation, like odd number of observations. So let's see why. We have 5 number of observations here. Okay, so if we divide 5 by 2, we'll get 2.5, and we only have second position here and third position here. We do not have anything in between both the positions. Okay, in short, what I'm trying to say is we always need an integer as the position and not any decimal value. Okay, and that's the reason we add 1 when we are dealing with odd number of observations. I hope that's clear. Now let's move on to mode. What is mode? Mode is the easiest concept of statistics. Mode is nothing but the most frequently occurring value of our data set. Okay, for example, we have a data set with numbers like 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 8, 10, 12, okay, and so on. So we can clearly see that the most frequently occurring value in our data set is 5. So the mode of this data set is 5. And always, and like I'm again repeating, always arrange your data set in an ascending order before you find out any of these values. You always have to arrange your data set in an ascending order. Okay, so that's it for today's class. If you have any doubt, you can comment down and I can clear your doubts on the comments. Now, this lecture was meant for young children who are in their schooling years, but also for people who are learning data science and statistics in their masters right now. That is because obviously this is very basic, but if you're dealing with huge data sets, you're obviously likely to face a situation called missing values. And to impute the missing values, if it's obviously less than 40%, you need to know your data and know when to impute with what. Okay, for example, if you're dealing with categorical variable, you're most likely to go with a mode to impute your null values or missing values. For example, if you have a column country, okay, which a column which represents the country of your customers, for example, and the most repeated value is India, for example. Okay, so if you have a lot of missing values, not a lot, but if you have 20-30% of rows which are missing, if you have 20-30% of cells that are missing, you can impute that with India because India is the most frequently repeating value in your data set in that column. Okay, now if you're dealing with numerical continuous variables, for example, temperature. Now, the situation with temperature or similar variables is that you can have outliers there. Okay, outliers, I mean extreme values. For example, temperature, the most of the data points in that column is between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and suddenly one day you get a temperature like 45 degrees, which is extremely high related to the average of your data set. Okay, so that is an outlier, and if you compute the missing values, if you impute the missing values with mean in that situation, it will take, like, the mean will be really high because it will also consider the 45-degree temperature in your average, which we don't want. So in that case we'll go with median. Okay, so you have to know the basics of mean, median, and mode if you're dealing with data. That's it. Thank you so much.